executive secretary is quoted as saying, quote, "Our circular never prescribed PhD as a requirement for them," meaning clinical lecturers, "to teach in colleges of medicine." This is a distortion of the contents of that circular. He goes further to add, and I quote, "We say PhD is desirable but not necessary for progression in medical education." Unquote. Again, this is an outright lie. Equally tragic is the combative stance of the ES, who, rather than seeking ways and avenues of reaching a reasonable and amicable resolution, prefers to carry on in the manner of an overlord who is being irritated by lowly minions not worthy of his attention. And this explains the air of superiority on display and the choice of equating clinical lecturers, many of whom I might add include professors of international repute, to students not worthy of consideration in decision-making. Hopefully, this will help the discerning public to understand why, 2 months into this imbroglio, the NUC has not deemed it fit to dignify any of our communications on this issue with a response, not to talk of any meaningful engagements.
So we're shifting our attention to the health sector this morning. Just yesterday, as you may have heard from that track, the Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria put out a communique issuing a directive saying that all their members are to withdraw their services. And we understand how important healthcare is in this nation and how much we have to go. So this happening right now is getting a lot of people concerned. The NUC, MDCAN, and a couple of other associations here and there are involved in this. But let's get the perspective of MDCAN this morning. That's the Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria. And we have the president, Professor Kenneth Ozoilo, joining us via Skype this morning. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
All right. So we stand right now at a strike. A lot of people might have gone to hospitals and realized that your members are not there. They have withdrawn their services. And the big question for a lot of people is, how did we get to this point? We know there's been a back and forth between the NUC and your association. But what are we missing here?
Thank you very much. First, let me correct one impression, and this actually goes to the heart of the problem at stake. Ours is a body that has a lot of peculiarities. We work in the health service sector and also in the education sector. Now, we have not withdrawn our services from patient care. What we have done is to ask our members to withdraw their services from medical education because we are not able to come to an agreement with the NUC.
But let me just put this in. So this started with the circular that the NUC put out, which NUC, by the way, is saying that was misinterpreted by your association. And, you know, I looked through that circular and I saw the part where the NUC, if I could just get that, the NUC said that it is basically for interested medical practitioners. But you are saying that the NUC is twisting the facts. So what did you see? What interpretation did you give to that circular? Can you hear me?
Well, the circular, yes, I can hear you. The circular says that there's going to be introduction of the PhD for interested members for career progression. Now, the implication of this is that if you want to teach, you have to have a PhD. That is what is on paper. And this is against our previous discussions where it was stated that a PhD is voluntary and not mandatory and has no bearing on career progression. And we are saying that this is not just what we want, this is what it obtains all over the world.
So the question now is, qualifying to be a medical doctor, is that the same thing as qualifying to teach? Is that what you're saying?
Now, such is our peculiarity that in order for you to be able to teach, you have to be a specialist. And what qualifies you, therefore, to be a specialist and to teach is the residency training program of the postgraduate medical colleges. Now, this postgraduate training program is a structured program of a minimum of 6 years. It has contents in both professional, that is to say patient care, academic, and research components. And the contents far outstrip that of the curriculum of PhD. All over the world, it is accepted that for clinical specialists, in order for you to be able to teach and to progress, you do not require specifically a PhD. What you require is the fellowship that comes after successful completion of the residency training program. This has been the status quo thus far, and we do not know why the NUC wants to change this by introducing the PhD as a mandatory requirement. And we are saying this is not proper, because what we need at the medical training is so structured to save lives. That is the most important aspect of medical education and medical practice. And we think that the NUC is paying too much emphasis on paper qualifications that have no bearing whatsoever on patient care or the ability to teach medicine. And the NUC does not see issues in the same light with us and has refused to create an avenue for us to have a meaningful discussion on this. This is where the problem is.
Let's read something from the NUC, from the Executive Secretary, saying that our circular never prescribed PhD as a requirement for them to teach in the colleges of medicine. Goes on to say, we say PhD is desirable, but not necessary for progression in medical education. So it seems NUC is saying that's not what we're saying, but you are saying that's what we're saying. And the question is, have you even had a sit down in the first place such that you will discuss some of these issues?
We've had some discussions in the past where it was agreed that if there is to be any introduction of PhD, it will be a strictly voluntary and optional thing. But the NUC has gone ahead to issue directives to vice chancellors. As I speak with you, the circular of the NUC is being implemented in the universities. And we have tried to, draw the attention of the NUC to this, and we are not making any headway.
Say it's been implemented. When you say it's been implemented in the universities, in what way? Are the universities saying this is mandatory, or they're following what the NUC said?
I'll advise you to have a look at the circular of the NUC of 24th December 2019. It's directed at the Vice Chancellors of Nigerian universities and the Registrar of the National Postgraduate Medical College. And that particular circular states that the PhD is for career progression. You see, the implication is that it is optional if you want to teach, okay? And if you want to progress, if you want to have career progression in the university, you have to have the PhD. And we're saying this cannot be. This was not our initial agreement, but the document, the extant document, this is what it contains. This is what it says, and it has not altered. And we are saying that this document needs to be withdrawn pending further discussions.
So in response to this, the circular, which I read earlier, you put out your own circular, and you said that for the avoidance of doubt, the services to be withdrawn include all undergraduate and postgraduate teaching in all courses domiciled in the colleges of medicine, all undergraduate and postgraduate examination, whether as internal or external, and you went on and on, but you have clarified that that does not mean that you are denying your services to patients, right?
That is correct. We are continuing with patient care for the time being.
Right. So now the question is, if you come together eventually and there's an agreement, and people are tilting towards saying that if this will make the medical sector, the teaching aspect of medicine much better, would you be, perhaps favorably disposed to it?
Well, listen, we are doctors. We're doctors. We do not prescribe treatments before defining the ailments. We want to know what is the problem with the existing structure that NUC wants to correct with a PhD. What is it that obtains in Nigeria that does not obtain in other parts of the world? What value, what additional value does PhD add to patient care and medical education at the undergraduate level or even postgraduate. This is the issue, and this is why it has been optional up to this point in this country and world over. Why does the NUC seek to impose it? What is there to be achieved other than just the satisfaction of saying that you have a PhD? This is the question for determination.
The NUC said, I need to get your response today, saying that we are not under MDCAN, that's referring to your association. We don't work with pressure group. Even ASU, which is our academic union, does not negotiate with us. It is like negotiating with students to start asking them the exam or questions they want to answer. Now, this is a statement from the NUC. Perhaps you have a response to that.
Well, I think it's very unfortunate because there are germane problems on ground, all created by the NUC, and everybody agrees that there is no problem that cannot be discussed. But placing itself above discussions with us, I don't know. I think that is most unfortunate. And I think that NUC, if it really cares about Nigeria and Nigerians, and in particular medical education, I think they should bring itself to a position where it will not constitute a problem. You see, it's supposed to facilitate, not impede medical education. What we have right now is that the universities currently are very hostile to doctors because of conditions that have been created by both universities and the NUC. And we are saying that and because of this, a lot of our members actually are leaving the academia. It is not beneficial to teach. I mean, people have a lot of hostile working environments in the universities. We suffer a lot of disadvantages, for deciding to teach in the universities. And we're saying that rather than trying to attract people into the academia, NUC is making the academia more hostile and making our members to leave the academia into the other service centers, such as the core hospital practice. And frankly, a lot of people have abandoned this whole project for, careers outside the country. This is verifiable fact.
If you say that there are perhaps other issues to focus on, maybe you can just let us know about it. If you think this is not the way for the NUC to go, what are the issues you think NUC should be focusing right now? If you say there are problems with medical education in Nigeria, so what are those areas?
Listen, my point is that, number one, there are peculiarities of medical education. You cannot solve this problem without taking into cognizance these priorities. Medical education is designed to produce manpower that will man the health sectors. Okay, it is not primarily designed to churn out people with PhDs and people with all kinds of qualifications. It is designed to produce people that will be able to man the health infrastructure across the country. Do we have enough of those people in Nigeria today? I mean, this is something that is very glaring. The health indices in Nigeria indicate that we have a doctor-to-patient ratio of 1:6,000, as against the 1:400 recommended by the WHO. And so we should be concentrating on how to improve the numbers that we churn out. Again, with the existing structure, the products that we produce are in high demand all over the world. So exactly what is it that is wrong with what we have right now? Now, coming to the problem of clinical lecturers in the university, okay? There's a lot of disadvantages that you incur. You understand? Because, for instance, if you are employed as a lecturer in the university, your remuneration is that of a lecturer, not that of a doctor. You stop earning as a doctor when you are employed by the university. And therefore, it is disadvantageous. It's a disincentive. So those that are working in the universities are already making a lot of profound sacrifices to work in the universities. And instead of appreciating that or correcting that, NUC is introducing a different layer of difficulty and a greater disincentive for people to take up works in the academia. And we're saying this is not acceptable for a system that is trying to improve our health indices.
That's understandable, which is why I ask, if you could advise the NUC, what structures would you be advising them to put in place such that we have a better sector, health sector, from education to practice and all the other value chains of the health industry in Nigeria?
Well, we have a saying in medicine, and that is primum non nocere. First, do no harm. What NUC is doing right now is extremely noxious to the profession, and we're saying the first thing is withdraw that circular. Subsequently, we can discuss and try to advance ways of improving healthcare. The first thing we can do is to try to incentivize. We should encourage people to take up careers in the academia and not discourage them.
Go ahead.
But we cannot do this without discussions. We cannot do this without discussions. And NUC has placed itself where it is beneath its dignity to have discussions with us.
We understand that. I mean, it's not just MDCAN that is perhaps involved here. There are other bodies involved. So why does it appear as though it is only MDCAN that is vocal about this? What about the other health associations or unions involved?
Well, MDCAN is vocal because MDCAN is the primary target. But I can assure you that in our emergency NEC meeting of 4th of January this year, we had all stakeholders in medical education in Nigeria. And I can assure you that all of us are on the same page on this. Only the NUC is pursuing its own agenda, which nobody else appears able to comprehend. Now, you're a journalist. You'll be able to reach out to the other people and corroborate what I'm telling you. Every other stakeholder in medical education fails to see the value of imposition of this PhD. And what NUC seeks to achieve is beyond our comprehension.
I recall you mentioned the talk about brain drain and saying that this is perhaps going to even push more doctors out of the country. Just how much of a dire situation are we in right now when it comes to brain drain, doctors leaving the shores of the country to practice elsewhere, which they feel the environment is much more favorable to them?
Well, look, even the ordinary Nigerian that walks into a hospital knows what the situation is. It is such that we are so depleted. And sometimes in a department where you had 10 people carrying out a particular duty, right now you're cut down to 7. Some departments are not as endowed as others. There are some departments where the skills are rare and you have 2 or 3 people. When one of them leaves or 2 of them leaves, you have an empty department. And when these people go abroad, they are not asked to bring a PhD. They are not asked for paper qualifications. They are simply interviewed on the basis of what they are able to achieve. And on the basis of that, the situation right now is that they get very highly paid employments. They are paid over and above what we're able to compete with here in Nigeria. And we are saying that instead of discouraging people from continuing their careers in Nigeria, we should find a way to encourage them because they are leaving. This is the real situation. At the end of the day, we will not have enough people to man the healthcare infrastructures in the country. I'm sure you are aware that there are recruiting agencies scouring the length and breadth of the country, from the Middle East, North America, and the rest, scouring for doctors and other health professionals. And they are leaving by the day. And we're saying that we need to develop a way to stem this tide because at the end of the day, it's the ordinary Nigerian that will suffer. Most Nigerians do not have resources to seek for medical tourism and all that. It's an elitist thing. The vast majority of Nigerians cannot afford it. And so what we have is simply what is existing right now. We have to find a way to make sure that we, incentivize careers within the country for people. Of course, it's not just restricted to the issue of work conditions and all that. The country itself is going through a lot of difficulties at this point in time, ranging from security to the economy, so many other things. And these are all push factors that force people, especially professionals, out of the country. And we are saying that whatever we can do to keep these people, we should be seen to be doing it.
Strike is never a good thing in Nigeria, especially in the health sector. And it begs the question, how far are you willing to go to ensure that the NUC withdraws that circular to begin with?
Well, I will tell you that this is the first time in the history of MDCAN that we are calling a strike. MDCAN as a professional body has never, in the history of this country, called a strike on its own. Okay, and this will tell you how far we have been pushed to the wall, especially by the refusal of the NUC to see reason. And what I can assure you is that we will not return to the classrooms unless that circular is withdrawn. And if if we're sufficiently pushed enough, we will ultimately withdraw from postgraduate medical training, withdraw from participating in the residency training program, and ultimately we will withdraw our services from patient care in the hospital if it comes to that.
On a final note, what punishment measures are in place for defaulters? Because I saw that in your circular too. How would you punish defaulters?
Well, I must tell you that that doesn't seem to be a problem right now, because our strike has, well, our withdrawal has a near 100% compliance from all over the country. And again, this is verifiable. You have people all over, you can verify that. But the association has a constitution, and its constitution has provisions for people that against, its directives, and we will apply what the Constitution says.
All right. Professor Kenneth Ozoilo, would like to thank you so much for your time this morning. He's the president of the Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria. He's been discussing about the withdrawal of service of consultants, especially in the teaching area in the medical sector in the country. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much for having me.